Welcome to Just One Question with your host, Lion Flood. This podcast is brought to you by The Minority Report, where our goal is to inspire, educate, and empower you with cultural knowledge. We'll also have conversations dealing with social justice, mental health, and the all-around truth. So if you're bold enough to hear the truth, then you're listening to the right podcast. Let's find out what that one question is with your host, Lion Flood.
Hey, it is I. I'm here, feeling good, looking good. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for coming to another episode of J1Q, Just One Question. I'm so glad that you are here. We got some great guests coming, talking about friendships, in relationships, outside of relationships, how to build them, what values they bring. Simon and Helene are going to bring some great information for you. And without any further ado, let's take a moment to meet them. Thank you guys so very much.
So overlooked, namely their friendships.
Yeah.
And we're deeply passionate about that. And we just see how this spills into every area of people's lives. Once you nail the skills it takes to build friendship, it just flows over into everything.
Yeah, definitely. We believe that one of God's biggest gifts for us are each other. But so often we don't unpack it as gifts.
Yeah.
And we want to empower people to do that so that we can be seen and loved for who we are.
Yeah.
And we can dare step out into the world and do what we're created to do.
Yeah.
And we believe we need to network. We need people who see and love us to actually do that. Otherwise, I don't dare, at least I know.
No. Yeah. And as a background, we are originally a trained engineer and a teacher who then later took a complete detour and started really just working with people, with coaching, with mentoring, and helping people walking this crazy journey of being people.
And so we ended up talking about friendships because we've been coaching and mentoring people for the last 25 years. And because I worked with human resources for 10 years and Simon has been working also supporting people and growing. And we just kept seeing that this area of friendships is, like you said, so overlooked that we don't even have a language for it. We can't work, like nobody knows what skills it takes. And so we were like, we got to put this on the agenda, people, because we need this. We need our networks to actually become the people we're created to be.
Easy.
And that is so amazing and interesting to start off with. And it's kind of like it when I started like researching and finding out, I was like, okay, I got to have these two on to talk to. My audience would love to hear this, is because I am all about empowerment, right? But I believe truly that we can't be fully empowered unless we have options and know things. I always say that we don't have a manual for stuff. We aren't born with a manual. This is how you should do it. Step 1, step 2, or step 3. And so if we have someone, if we have a coach, if we have someone who could speak and talk about, hey, these are different methods. Maybe let's say there's 5 of them, but then 2 of them don't fit into your personality or whatever. You at least have 3 other ones. And kind of going into that, I read somewhere you all were talking about like 5 steps or some ways to get the friends that you want. Can you kind of touch on that for someone out there to say, wow, I didn't know that's a method or a way to do it? What are some of these 5 steps?
Well, the first step is actually to sit down and figure out what kind of friends you want. And that could be looking at your past experience, looking at your values, or just really thinking about, okay, what kind of people do I click? What this is I need. Because what we so often hear when people say, I need friends, well, they're most often told, well, get a hobby.
Yeah.
You'll meet people.
Get more interesting. Wow.
Yeah.
Those are not our suggestions, by the way.
No. But with a hobby, you might share an interest, but you do not share your core values. And when we're all about creating authentic friendships, it's about looking for what is the deeper things in me that I want someone to connect with or around.
And just to simplify it, we often think that if we have something in common, like a hobby, then we ought to be friends. We root for the same football team, so clearly there is a base here for us to be friends. But often that's a confusion that comes up there, because just because you both like I'm a Green Bay Packers fan. Sorry if you're not. But just because we both like the Packers really doesn't mean that
Mm-mm.
we have the same values, the same way of viewing life, the same ethics, and the same things that drive us in life. So we often misunderstand just because we like the Packers, we should be able to connect. And sure, connect, but deeper level of connecting that has to do with your ethics, your values, the way you actually look at life.
Yeah, your dreams, your aspirations.
Mm,
And so just starting there,
Yeah.
I've met so many people where I ask them, so what friends do you want?
mm,
And we often end up talking about what they want people to do for them. I
right.
want someone to talk to. I want someone who can help me. I want someone to have fun with.
Right.
Well, that's a service more than it's a friend. So actually stopping and thinking what kind of person is it I want to meet is
Mm,
a great step to actually being able to look for the friends you want or create the friendship you want.
mm,
That is so like I'm sitting here and I'm literally listening and I'm thinking to myself, I'm like, that hits me right in my heart, right? Because I'm I'm doing a few of those things without even knowing that I was doing them. But I think that
mm,
comes with age because when we're younger, we're just like anyone and everyone. As you get older, you're kind of like, I want
mm.
Yeah.
peace more than a few things, right? So
Yeah,
I
yeah, yeah.
started in my life making my inner circle, making my friends really people who I would just call friends. I would get to the
Right.
point where I would say, well, that's an associate, that's an acquaintance, but they're not my
Mm,
friend,
Mhm.
right?
right,
I
right.
didn't know I was doing some of the things that you were just talking about. I've
Mm,
got a core group of friends that I can trust, I can count on. We can go months without talking, but that phone rings. I'm like, yes, or vice versa. I'm not like,
mm,
well, they didn't call me, so they're not my friends. I really think what you're saying there just really hits home because we're not taught that as kids. Everyone's our friend, right?
mm.
Everyone's our
Exactly.
friend.
Yeah,
Yeah. We have
yeah.
a 5-year-old daughter and she'll come home from the playground. I got a new friend, mommy. I can't remember her
Yes.
name, but it's my new friend.
Yes.
And it is what we're taught is that friendships are supposed to happen just because we're around people. When
Mm,
reality is like any meaningful relationship, friendships require work.
Mm,
But we also see because of the assumptions we have about friendships in our society, we limit how beautiful, how nourishing, how strong, how deep our friendships can actually be because we think that friendships are just supposed to be easy and fun.
yeah. And I think sometimes we underestimate what it takes to have close friends. We can have
Mm,
a little definition of close friends and buddies and strangers and acquaintances and all the way down and they all have value. But for us to get close friends, we have to work at it. We have to put in some effort because that takes a level of vulnerability where someone actually knows the side of you that you don't like to put on Instagram.
and most men are really good at that, right,
Or
Vinny?
we excel as men. We really love to no, we don't.
that's
And that's
right.
actually a struggle. And studies show that 1 in 5 men are
Mm,
actually battling. No, only 1 out of 5 are not battling lonesomeness when it comes to being in committed relationships. So
mm,
many men we talk to after retirement, they're actually hitting a mark where they thought they had friends in their colleagues because for 8 to 10 hours a day they were together, but now they're departed by 15 miles and they're not meeting every single day. And now they don't call each other. They don't have an anchor. So a lot of men will actually find themselves after retirement feeling lonely and only having
mm,
a significant other, a spouse, or some family members, and often are disappointed because the talks hadn't been there. They hadn't gotten the skills or maybe even the courage to call someone and say, you know what, I thought we were buddies. What happened? We're not calling each other. So we actually see a lot where the simple skills it takes are just not being used. And especially men, we don't like being vulnerable. So being the first to pick up the phone and saying, hey, I thought we were more than colleagues, it doesn't happen. And so we drift apart. And that's definitely a symptom that we see all the way through. But on
Yeah.
top of that, just being vulnerable enough so we don't just stay buddies, that we don't just stay guys who can drink a beer and hit each other and have that kind of fun, but actually being close and deep and someone you call when you have a bad day. That
Man.
takes some effort. that takes some time. And someone does it naturally without knowing.
Mm.
Other people have no clue what to do.
The rest of us kind of struggle.
Yeah, but it's
Message. That's my little message
oh,
cue. That's my
go
little
on.
thing where I make a sound to tell the listeners, like, that's a very important thing. You should listen. Message.
There you go.
So-
I love it.
and man, I'm taking away so much from this because I'm sitting and I'm listening and I'm thinking to myself, right? Friendships to me as well. It can be even if you're in a relationship, that's a great thing to still have a friendship and to build that as well. But I
Mm,
also think that friendships outside of the relationships are important because they give us a balance. And correct me if I'm wrong here, but they help us
Mm.
to balance maybe some life things if things are hectic. Because like my wife and I, we talk often, and one of the things that we worked on is we will find out each other's strengths. So, for example, she is a better communicator with writing, and I love verbalizing. So we compromised, and we would sit down and say, "All right, tell you what, write down three things that you would like to see me work on, and vice
mm,
versa." So now I
right.
was able to see some of the things that I'm doing that I didn't know I was
Mm.
doing that she wanted maybe not necessarily corrected, but adjusted. But I
Mm,
had to take my ego out of it. And when
Yeah,
you were
that's
talking
beautiful.
just now, Simon, about the gentleman moving far apart, and then you don't call me, I use an analogy of like the dance at the high school. Everyone's standing
yeah.
on the wall. They want to ask each other to dance, but I'm afraid. Oh, I don't want to
Hmm.
call my
Mm.
buddy because he didn't call me. Well, if we're both
Right.
thinking that way, we won't get to it. So, and I think I
Mm,
read somewhere that writing stuff down and making a plan is like within
mm,
one of your five kind of steps there.
Mm.
What do you mean by writing it down? Is that more for like what I want to give versus like how you said the acts of service?
mm.
Mm.
Yeah, no, the post you saw us writing was definitely one of the things was writing down what kind of friendships you want to have, what you need from a friendship, because it almost sounds a little bit selfish to say what I want or what I need, but there is something to actually putting it into words. And for you to practice beforehand saying, what is the values of my friendship? What do I need from a friend? It's not selfish, but it actually makes it possible for you to verbalize that once you come into the conversation and to dare being vulnerable enough to say, you know what I like in a friend is someone who reaches out to me when I've been at the doctor, someone who will actually remember my birthday, someone who will to care enough to write notes on their phones to make sure that we are in each other's lives. So to say that and be vulnerable enough to say that would make me feel loved by you as a friend. So it's verbalizing that and making sure you put that into words as well so you can talk about it once you are in that
Mm.
topic on that topic with your friend. Yeah.
What we see is very often people don't have language around their needs or
Mm,
their boundaries or their expectation in friendships.
mm.
So we end up expecting people to read each other's minds.
Oh, but don't we? I'm a good mind reader. I
No,
know.
no, you're not,
No.
darling. No, don't, just don't. It, we all suffer some from an assumption that friendships are supposed to be easy or simple.
Mm,
And we therefore haven't developed the language to express ourselves, express our needs, dig into conflicts as well.
mm,
We are a big fan, and this sounds really strange, but we're a big fan of conflicts in friendships, because if you haven't had a conflict, you're probably not that close.
mm,
Because we as humans, we have corners, we have things where we scratch up against each other when we get close.
mm,
And that's actually really beautiful.
mm.
So we're a big fan of writing things down to develop this language so that we become better at communicating around our friendships.
Mm. And I think I'm very much like you. I like to verbalize, but I've just found that sometimes when the reason why I like to verbalize is that I don't take the time to prepare it. And then I just, hey, don't say it like that. Because I don't take the time to prepare it, then I'm winging it as we're there. And I don't often get to say what I wanted to say, because then in hindsight, oh, I was actually not prepared. I wasn't ready to talk about it. So sometimes it actually boils down, for me at least. I'm not going to point to everyone else and say that's how you run. But for me, it's the lack of preparation that often makes it so that I don't get to say what I actually wanted to say. It's not that I have a list of demands. It's just make sure that you get an inner language for yourself. And that's actually one of the things when we are taking our paid clients into a program, we're spending a lot of time to teach them to get their inner language out. Because often we as a human race, we don't have the language for what's going on inside. We can say, I feel bad, but why does it feel bad? We can say something is off. I can feel it in my gut. Something is just not working. But having the time and the language to figure out, who am I actually? What makes me happy? What makes me mad? What makes me sad? And how can I fix that? That is a different thing. And most people just don't have a language for it. So we actually spend a lot of time digging in. So finding out, who are you? Because if you don't know who you are, there's no way someone else can love you for who you are. And so that's really a big thing, to dig into that. And it takes a little bit of soul searching, and that takes a little bit of writing it down and figuring it out, and getting to know this new language that goes on the inside.
Listen
Because here's
here,
the thing.
ladies and oh, I'm sorry. I was just gonna say y'all are dropping bombs right
Sorry.
now, but go ahead, Helena. Please finish.
The thing, we can't connect deeper with others than we're willing to connect with ourselves.
Right.
Yeah.
So we need this language around who we are.
Hmm.
Normally say that like humans are kind of like Velcro, and the more you're willing to connect with yourself, the more people can stick to you, the more there is to connect with. So if you're not willing to dig into your fears, dig into your failures, own your dreams, go for your passions, like you and your wife is land there, which is beautiful, then there's not a lot to connect with. If you only live for your job and whatever series on Netflix, I know there's more to you, but there's very little to connect with. But the more you dare to share about who you are, the more that gets to actually connect with. And that creates such beautiful friendships.
Yeah.
So you can't connect deeper with others than you're willing to connect with yourself.
Listen, I don't even have the AC on in my home right now, and I'm getting chills because this is like serious goodness here. So now I've been doing this for a little while, and I can sort of start to tell in some preparation. And there was a little hint dropped, I think, by you, Simon, and you may not have known it, but you said you were talking to several people who retired, or just talking to several people. Now, for me, that's a little small hint that there's something in the works of like research, preparing for some sort of a book or something that you're referencing, right? Because now you got to talk to people and get ideas. So, dare I do ask, is there sort of like a book in the work or anything coming?
Yeah, man, and we're happy to say so that
Yeah.
we're to be authors, and that is
that sounds
is
crazy.
It's very exciting, and it's just an overflow of years and years of talking to people, researching the phenomenon that is human connections, and really just wanting to get loud about it. And it's really our passion. We want to get loud, and we want to go and shout this everywhere, because we believe we need to break taboos, and we need to clear bad assumptions about what friendships is and what they're definitely not, and what it takes to build them. And so we're boiling all of this into a book. And it is our first book. And so you're getting all the gold nuggets. We're not holding anything back. We're just jamming it all in there. But it's very exciting, because we see that there's so much forming right now that we're ready. Like next week, we have the first rough draft going through. So there's still a long ways, but our first rough draft of this book is actually done by next week. So we're very excited about that.
It's going to be a handbook.
Yeah.
It's going to be as practical as we can possibly get around how to build new friendships. So our first book is going to be about new friendships. It is going to come up, and I think it's going to be next year. We're going to make one about how to create deeper, like go deeper with the friends you already have. But the first one is just, how do I actually create new friendships as an adult? How do I not just get a hobby and hope that friendships happen, but how do I methodically structured go through, what do I need? Where do I find them? How do I have great conversations with them? How do I handle fear of rejection? Because I at least know that's a big thing. And for lots of our clients, that's a huge thing that we talk about.
Yeah.
And then how do I just, like, it's kind of like saying, want to go steady? We actually suggest you do that in friendships as
Oh,
well.
yeah.
You go, we're building a friendship, right? Because from there on, it's so much easier to take it to the next level. So it's going to be a step-by-step handbook.
Yeah.
And there's going to be lots of practical exercises. And it's going to be because we believe that new knowledge is great, but what changes our lives are new behavior. So we're going to try to get as close to that as we can and just share everything we can give our readers about how to go confidently into the world and create new friendships.
Yeah. And I just want to stretch that really hard. You might not know us. There's definitely something on the other side of the screen who doesn't know us that well. We are very big on practical. I think too often we as human, we like to stay up here in the theoretical. Like every football fan in the world, like they want to shout at the screen, but when it comes to going to the gridiron and actually being able to do it, you can't do it, and you won't practice, and you won't work it out.
But you know everything about it.
I know everything about it, but that's
Yeah.
kind of the same thing with friends. You have to get dirt under your nails, and we will be very practical. We're very much into like, we don't want to have a 10-step plan. We just want to one step, practice that step. Next step, practice that step. So we very, very practical oriented. And that's what this book will be about as well. We want to be practical so that people are walking away with a book where they're like, I have something to do. I have something where I can grasp onto this and I can start working, because we want to get loud and we want to give as many people tools to do this as possible.
There it is. And ladies and gentlemen, you're going to get all of the information because we're going to have in the show notes the websites we've been putting up on the screen for the viewers, how you can get in touch with them at their Instagram and all their social media handles. But it's something you said, Helene, I really loved. And it was talking on, you said, the fear of rejection, right? The going steady. And I think that's so important. But it's a lot of people, they're afraid that if they do that, here it comes, they will get
emotional damage.
I love it.
Yes, it is true.
So, but I really want to say this for any of the listeners out there, and especially for me, I can speak to my culture in this. We were taught so hard to not be vulnerable. And as I grew up, I learned you must. If you want to gain something stronger with your friends, your spouse, family members, you've got to open up and be okay with it not being okay. It's not always going to be perfect. I see too many people try to fake that everything's perfect. No, my life is a shamble at times, but we push through it. And if there's someone out there listening to your voices right now and they're saying, you know what? Okay, I have a friendship. I have someone who I really want to strengthen my bond with. How can they, and I'm going to use a word that I saw with you guys and I'm absolutely loving, how are they able to show up authentically? A few tips, because we don't want to give everything away so they'll have a reason to get the book.
Yeah. I think the first step with authenticity is that no one can wake up one morning and just go, I'm just going to be an authentic person from now on.
Nope.
So it takes practice.
Yeah, for sure.
And if you want to grow deeper friendships, I often talk to our clients about writing a list of the things that you are hiding, that you're not sharing with this friend, and then kind of rate it when it comes to vulnerability. And then start from the top. Start with the things that are a little less vulnerable, but start sharing. That's the first tip. Like, write a list so you know what you want to talk about, and then start sharing. Second, frame it. When you talk to people, and especially if it's people who are already in your life and you're sharing something vulnerable, let them know that it's vulnerable so they don't have to guess it, because that sets you both up for a win. Just say something like, this is really vulnerable for me to share. I want to share something with you that is a little vulnerable. And you can say that as a man as well.
Yeah, sure.
So that would be two very low practical ways of starting to show up more authentically. But I think behind that is daring to know who you are. And that takes time for most of us, because if we are engaged in people pleasing, we often don't even know where it is we don't show up authentic.
No. And I think there is definitely, as you say, Helene, is something about daring to just take the small steps. No one is going to learn any of this at day one. But there is an acknowledgement that needs to take place, that a shift must happen inside of me. And as a man, there is no way around it. If you want to have deep relationships, if you want to have deep friendships, vulnerability is gonna come up. It's impossible without. It's just disclaimer. But it can look very different. It can be talked about in different ways. And I think the reason why I'm stretching this so much is I think many men will say, well, that's a little bit, lack of a better word, gets yucky, right? What do I do with it? It just seems like some things the women should do, right? They take care of all that soft stuff, and we go and throw the ball around. But it's just not possible to build that kind of relationship unless you're willing to show the darker sides of yourself, willing to show the sides that you're not proud of, and engaging with that with the friend that you actually wanna have a deeper relationship with. That's just a must. And there's many ways to it. There's many lists, and
Yeah.
we'll actually share some of that on our Instagram these next couple of weeks. We have a few lists on how you can actually start this very slow, very easy.
And leading right into that, would you share with our listeners what's the Instagram? Where can they find you at? What
Yeah.
are some ways they can get in touch with you? I know we've been placing the website and so forth on screen, but for the listeners, can you kind of spell it out for them and let them know where they can find
Will
you?
do. Yeah.
That's your job.
We'll do. So our main social media is Instagram, and it's Simon and Helene. So with an E in the end. So it's Simon, Simon and AND, Helene, Helene, Simon and Helene. And that's where you'll find us. And in the link tree, you'll find ways you can connect to us both directly, email, go on a completely free video call with us and just have a chat, because that's what we
Yeah,
love
and
to
how
do.
to jump on our program if you want to do that.
Exactly. Yeah.
Because we love taking people. We have people that we walk with for a whole year,
Mm,
going from I'm not quite sure I have the right friends to actually confidently knowing how to build friendships and
mm.
really have developed some stronger friendships already.
Yeah. Our
We
very
love
first
doing that.
client just called us the other day and said, send us a picture of his birthday with his new girlfriend and a table full of friends. And just big, strong man, like, just so you know, this was not possible without you. And it was just a beautiful
I
moment. Just,
cried.
just a beautiful moment of him just honoring us, being very forthright and saying, this wouldn't have been possible without you. Because he had a dominating father figure who never taught him how to connect. And I think that's really it. It is counterculture for all Western to be vulnerable, to dare to open up. And even if you have a significant other, that should be enough. Your family should be enough, but it's not. It's against everything. It's in our DNA. We need it, and you can get it as well. Sorry, I'm
There
on a
you
rant.
go. No, there you go. I love it. I love it. And it's something kind of like you said, we're taught a lot that we shouldn't be doing that. But it's
No.
kind of just like an analogy with sports, right? We need a
Mm.
coach. Sometimes we don't think we need
Yes.
a life coach, right? You're going to
Mm.
just go play football, basketball, whatever. Well, how are you going to do it if you're not taught, right? So having a coach to coach you through things that you were never taught
Mm.
as a kid, or you don't have that implemented in you, is really good.
Mm.
And I absolutely love it. And I'm telling the listeners, if they get a chance, log on, watch some of your videos, take that call with them, listen to some of the things
Mm.
that could be given to you that might enlighten and open your eyes. So I appreciate it.
Yeah.
Any last final words you want to maybe send out to the viewers here?
I just want to say, first of all, to you, Leon, I think thank you for everything you're doing. I love that you're bringing light into the world, shedding light. So much that we get influenced with in the world. It's just darkness and the war in Ukraine and everything that's gone wrong. But here you're trying
Yeah.
to shed light and bring something positive into the world. So thank you for that. And just we haven't connected that many times, but it's just been real when we have. And you're just the real deal. I just the other day something happened in Leon's life. I'm not going to say too much, but the honesty that you came with towards us across the world, it just says so much about you. And you're an amazing man.
That was
Yeah,
authentic.
yeah, it was
Yes.
really
Thank
authentic.
you.
So thank you for that. Thank you
Yeah,
for bringing that.
absolutely. Thank you. And I'll tell you a real quick short story on that. And because I started working, and like you said, it takes work to become more authentic, right? And so I don't know when it was, but it was a point in my life I was like, I just want to start being more open and honest with myself, one, and then everyone else. And a little small thing I started to do was when people were asking me, how's your day? Or how are you doing? We are so conditioned to, I'm okay. I'm all right.
Yeah.
It's a
Come
stock
on.
answer. And so what I started to do was I was like, I'm going to tell them, you know what, today's not
Mhm.
the
Yes.
best day, but I'm looking forward to what's coming. Always ended it on a positive. You know, so
Mm.
are you okay? Well, I'm about 70% today. They would be
Mhm.
like, what? But it started making me feel better. And then last thing, I started responding when people would ask me, how are you doing today? Right? We're so used to just saying an answer. But
Yeah.
when I started to give that same question back to them, they would get shocked.
Mm.
They're like, what? You're asking me? So they
Yeah.
say, well, how you doing today? I was like, hey, you know what? Actually, I'm doing really good today. How are you doing? And they weren't prepared for
Mm.
it because we're so used to just giving our answer, almost like,
Yeah.
don't ask
Yeah.
me anymore. And that was my first step to working and become more open and honest. So, all
Love
right,
it.
let me
Oh,
get
that's
ready to
really
wrap this show up. Hang on for me for 1 second. Let me do the final things to get this housekeeping done and pay some of these bills. And I'm going to be right back with you two, okay? Thank you so very much. So, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for coming to another episode of Just One Question. I sincerely appreciate you all for being here. And remember, as we say all the time, keep living while you're alive.
Thank you for listening to Just One Question. I know you enjoyed the show because you made it this far. If you want to hear more, subscribe, share, and don't forget to give us a 5-star review. Now, what's your one question?